Hi everyone. So I've had a lot of interest recently in the 16 pitch lengths test, which is a reliable sort of measure of our aerobic fitness. And the reason why I think a lot of people enjoy it is that it's simple. It's something which we can do consistently without it affecting our ability to train, and it provides us with useful, actionable information that enables us to individualize running prescription for large numbers of athletes. So whether you're an athlete working by yourself and just need a simple test you can be doing consistently to measure and track your fitness, as well as sort of compare normative values with others, or whether you're working in large groups at a club and need to be able to measure all those different elements, as well as being able to individualize training prescription, then this is also a very useful test. So in summary, I'm going to be talking through why we do the test, what the test is, and how we can prescribe from the test itself. So the rationale behind using it as a test is that it's a simple, reliable measure of our maximal aerobic speed, which is the lowest speed at which VO2 max occurs. So in other words, it is a simple and reliable measure of our aerobic fitness. And aerobic fitness is a core component of hockey performance, being a differentiator between different playing levels. So if you're a international hockey player, it's likely your mass score is going to be a lot higher than that of a club level or national level player, because the running demand of the sport is significantly higher. So you're naturally going to have to be operating at a much higher level there. So we can use the test not only just to sort of individualize things, but also to compare against different normative levels. So there are papers out there which will show you normative values for mass scores for footballers, rugby sevens players, hockey players, Aussie rules players. So we could compare against all these different sports and levels of athlete and determine where we're sitting aerobically, which is obviously very useful in terms of our ability to prescribe, compare and contrast and that kind of thing. So this is the protocol. So all you need setup wise is a stopwatch and a hockey pitch, and that's it. You don't have to necessarily use a hockey pitch, but it's useful in terms of being able to just bolt it onto hockey training before or after, or as a standalone session, but it's just more specific to what you're going to be doing. You're running on a hockey pitch, so if you're going to be if you can do it on a hockey pitch, that's even better. However, as long as it's 1,600 yards or 1,462 meters, that's also fine. So a football pitch, rugby pitch, also fine, or a park, as long as you can accurately get the distance right, it's all good. So all you're going to do is run essentially 16 pitch lengths as fast as you possibly can. So out and back 8 times, trying to achieve that in the shortest time possible. One of the most common things you see people do, and I think particularly the first time you do this, the pacing is really key. So people often go out super fast and then aren't able to sustain that because they start working anaerobically really fast. And if you do that, you're not going to be able to sustain the speed. Remember, it's a maximal aerobic speed score. This isn't an anaerobic test. So it needs to be a speed that you can sustain for the whole distance. And when you first do it, it's probably good to get a kind of baseline idea as well, so that next time you can improve it and improve it in subsequent efforts. So the speed's got to be relatively consistent to avoid starting too fast, as I say there. So try and, if you've got a target time in mind, which I'll be talking about in just a second, could you give yourself a pitch length target to aim for? So if you're trying to aim for 5.5 minutes, try and work out what the sort of cut off per pitch length that needs to be, and that'll help you to pace it evenly throughout all 16 lengths of the pitch, rather than starting off crazy quick and having to catch up, or starting too slow and vice versa. At the end of this, then you're going to get your mass score. The mass score is essentially just the distance divided by time. So to calculate this, you take the distance in meters, so 1,462, divided by the time it takes in seconds, and that's going to give you your mass score in meters per second. So maximal aerobic speed score in meters per second. So for example, player A in red here runs the 16 pitch length, in 330 seconds, which is 5.5 minutes. and so their mass score is 4.43 meters per second. So 100% of their mass score is 4.43, whereas player B in the purple has run the same distance at the same time, but it took them 6 minutes, so 360 seconds, so their mass score is 4.06 meters per second. So that then shows you the gap aerobically between player A and player B, which is useful if we're working in a group of athletes. It means we can sort of see where the two players stack up against each other. Individually, it means they can see where they sit versus the rest of the group, plus other levels and normative values. You can individualize off of that score, you can prescribe off of that score, and you can retest and compare with that score as well. So really simple and effective, but we've now got an idea of someone's baseline fitness. Then when it comes to prescription, we can take the score and we can look at percentages of that score to determine what running speeds we should be aiming for different types of conditioning. So if we're going to be doing longer interval work, and I've written about this in a few blog posts, then below 100% of maximum aerobic speed is where we need to be sitting. And if we're looking at intensive intervals, things like 15 seconds on, 15 seconds off, or 30 on, 30 off, typically we're pushing above 100% of maximum aerobic speed, because obviously working for short intervals above the speed at which we can sustain for around a 5-6 minute period. So we then take player A and player B there. So we've got two different hockey players. Player A, they're going to be running just under 4 meters per second at 90%, whereas player B is 3.65. So we can then individually give them different distances to aim for or times based on the type of conditioning session we decide to do. And in just a second, I'll show you a sort of template running conditioning session you can do based on a prescription of 110%, what that looks like in reality. So we can then build out a sort of full running profile, and that enables us to compare between players. But also if you've then got up to say 20 players in the group, you can actually very easily work out if everyone's going to be doing 15 on, 15 off at 115% of their mass score, then you start the whistle at 0, stop the whistle at 15, and everyone's got slightly different distances to aim for within that working block. And all you can do is just put a simple cone down so you know exactly where to aim for, and then on the way back, if it is a short interval like that, you've got a target distance to aim for in every consecutive effort. Or if we're operating off of a set distance and a target time, do the same thing. Let's say doing pitch length efforts as a squad, but with different target times, then everyone will start at the same time but finish at different times, but will have achieved the same distance. So typically, if you're an athlete working by yourself and you just need to be doing conditioning sessions, having a set distance to run to with a set of the target time to aim for is often a little easier logistically. You haven't got to worry about putting cones down. You just know, okay, I'm going to run to the end of the pitch. My time I've got to aim for is this. If, however, you're a coach working with large numbers, let's say working with 10 or 15 athletes in a group and they've all got individual targets to aim for, the logistics of trying to keep track of who's where at a given time point on a based on a set distance is very hard. So say, for example, you're doing pitch lengths, someone's got 17-second target, someone's got an 18-second target, someone's got a 19-second target. It's actually very hard to keep track of where people are. Whereas if you've got set times with a target distance, you can get everyone working and stopping on the clock nice and uniformly, and everyone will have a visual cone to aim for, so they know where they're going, and you can see immediately as soon as you blow the whistle, you can see exactly where everyone is in relation to their target. So logistically easier if you're a coach to work off of set times. If you're an athlete working by yourself, easier to work off set distances. At the end of this video, I'm going to talk through the complete hockey conditioning program that I've built, which goes into this in way more depth and gives you target times, distances to aim for, and explains this in far more depth. But I'll explain that towards the end. So last little bit then, this is how a sort of example conditioning session could look with player A and player B. So we've decided to do a 20 seconds on, 20 seconds off mass conditioning session, and we've picked a intensity of 110% of maximum aerobic speed. We could go faster than that, we could go slower than that. Totally depends on the context here, but that's going to be a sort of ballpark that you might be aiming for. So player A, you can see at the bottom there in terms of the math on this, we take 100% of their maximum aerobic speed score. We multiply that by 110% because that's the prescription we're aiming for. Multiply that by 20 for the 20 seconds, and that gives player A a 97 meter target, whereas player B's got an 89 meter target based on the same time. So if you were the coach, you blow the whistle on 0, 2 players start running, and as soon as the whistle goes on 20, they should have achieved those distances. So player B will be 2 meters short of the pitch length, so 89 meters out of 91. So they just have a cone set up 2 meters short of the end of the pitch length, and that's their target. Player A is going to have a longer running distance because they've got a higher maximum aerobic speed score of 97 meters. And there's 2 ways you can do this. Either you could go all the way to the end of the pitch and then back 6 meters, so a little shuttle at the end there, or you could obviously do something like 48 meters as one shuttle, which would be just beyond the halfway line and back. Just depends how you want to set it up. If you want to keep people running together, then you could have them all doing those kind of half pitch length shuttles, or you could have it as more of like a linear conditioning. It very much depends on how you want to set this up, but it just gives you an idea of how you can do that. Obviously, if you're going to incorporate changes of direction, you're typically going to want to include about a half to 0.7 second change of direction time component, because otherwise the target time is going to be harder to achieve if there's a big high speed change of direction there as well. So just something else to consider. So the prescriptions for these would be just based off a very simple linear conditioning test. So as I say, I've put this program together. So if you're interested in looking at this in way more depth, I've put together a 40-page conditioning kind of manual for hockey specifically. So this breaks down the test into more depth, looks at 10 different types of conditioning sessions that you can do, and how you can individualize that based off of a conditioning calculator. So it will show you exactly how you can map this out for you if you're an individual athlete, or whether you're working as part of a group, or you're a coach working with large volumes of athletes. This will give you all the answers, and you can check this out in the link down below.